game, and I'm actually interested to see what the win rate of Gragas has been during this tournament. I haven't actually been keeping track, but I feel like it'd be pretty high because there've been so many good Gragas Ultimate big plays by Gragas players that he's had a pretty good win rate thus far.
See, I'm going to bring in some personal competitive experience. Every competitive game that I've played as a part of the team Jason Kaplan's shiny forehead has Gragas has 100% win rate. So, I'm going off a small sample pool, but I'm going to say Gragas is pretty good.
It is. I think it was approximately 4 games. Many of those which we lost, but
well, they had Gragas. That's why we lost.
Of course, indeed. Or it was banned out. So
yeah, that too.
Absolutely. So from that sample data, we can confirm Gragas is very good. So taking a look at Eternity, I'm currently on the stream delay, so have they locked anything in?
They've locked in Shyvana, which is not surprising. We talked about that in the previous picks and bans phase. Shyvana being left available means Shyvana's probably going to get first picked unless something stronger is available as well. So not too surprising here. Rengar is available should Eternity look to pick that one up. That's a champion that when available tends to be picked, although when available doesn't always rely on the picks and bans phase, as Rengar's seen on the tournament client, a little bit of a restriction to him. However, he is available for this tournament.
Yeah, not. There was a couple questions from chat asking why they didn't pick Kassadin, which, if they do pick him up, they can call him Kappadin, which would be fantastic.
Oh,
but it's fairly unlikely. We might see it, considering the Gragas ban. Gragas, of course, does very well against Kassadin, but we'll see what they bust out. But Shyvana first pick is something that we see a lot, especially when she's not being banned out.
Yeah, that's one of those things with regards to Kassadin is the lane opponents he'll go against tend to be fairly consistent meta picks. Orianna Gragas do okay against Kassadin as long as you just don't overextend too much. They can farm out fairly well. However, what has been locked in on the side for Superteam EU Kappa is Annie and Elise. So going along with champions they know quite well already here.
Yeah, indeed. And Mundo is also open. We haven't seen a Mundo pickup just yet. And again, Elise and Annie are just very consistent picks. So I probably would expect to see a Mundo here. We could definitely see that from Eternity because Shyvana can just go jungle, Mundo goes in the top lane and is very solid. You might have to pick something like a Karma to allow them to get into a fight, maybe a Sivir, but a Talisman of Ascension does that regardless.
Chat just caught up with the Kappadin comment.
Outstanding.
Oh dear. However, Eternity still deciding on their picks here. They are letting the clock run down fairly low as Strategist finally locks in Leona and Lucian, of course, a double L bot lane. Not quite the triple L of Lowland Lions, but they do have a player that plays Shyvana. So I guess we can kind of call them pseudo Lowland Lions right now.
Yeah, we definitely could do that. So right now, it's a little bit of an interesting composition. It doesn't really tell us anything, I think, is the biggest thing. But Leona is not something we see all the time, especially when we have so many other supports like Annie, more of the unconventional supports, and mainly range supports as well. Leona is a very aggressive bot laner, and generally won't be in a 1 versus 2, which is something we can see, but 1v2s hardly ever happen anymore, regardless.
Yeah, of course, the changes to turrets gives them extra armor in the early game, and just the changes to game flow as well. A lot of the vision reduction has really impacted the ability to put people in solo lanes against a duo pairing. So there's been a lot of changes that really have just reduced the 2v1 potential, especially with top laners now that just like to sit in lane and farm, like Dr. Mundo, who has been picked up to go up against the Shyvana, and I think that's actually a far better pick to go against the Shyvana than we saw in the previous game, although the roles are reversed here.
Yeah, indeed. Shyvana still wins the first couple levels because she outputs more damage and Mundo kills himself using Burning Agony. But as you transition more to like level 6, there still will be a slight advantage to Shyvana, but it gets to the point where it's negligible and Mundo will just trade blows and nothing will really happen. So that is a much more solid top lane.
Yeah, Chewed Up has locked in Jinx as well, so that will go alongside the Annie pickup earlier in the picks and bans phase. Now, Eternity, again, taking quite a bit of time over their remaining 2 picks, and we see Vi hovered over. We've seen the Caitlyn pick in response a couple of times already. So we saw that in game number 1, and I believe it was Eternity picking Vi, and it went well for them. Pair that alongside the Orianna that gets locked in, and that's actually quite a scary engage combo when you pair that with Leona.
Yeah, that's huge amounts of dive. You've got Shyvana, Leona, Vi. That is so scary for the back line. So, especially when Jinx's low mobility AD carries, she flame chompers, and it's just like, okay, and then the dragon just jumps over it. And it's very difficult to deal with that late game, especially when the peel is basically Elise at this stage. And Annie is very good at peeling, but is generally your initiation. So we'll have to see exactly what Super Team Kappa pick up here.
I have to assume it'll be Kale. It
Yeah.
really is the factor here that will change things. We've talked about it a couple of times already today, and it really, at the beginning of season 4, we'll be heading into now the 2014 season for LCS. We're seeing a very similar playstyle to the beginning of season 3, and if that's an Ahri that gets locked in, that is not what I'd expect. But maybe Exile just doesn't feel quite confident in picking the Kale from earlier.
He did very well with the KO though. It wasn't a terrible pick, and I don't think it's a terrible pick now because it's against the Vi. It fits the composition pretty well because they do need peeling for Chewed Up, and Teemo doesn't fulfill that role.
Yeah, Teemo does not fulfill that role. Ahri, however, does fulfill a fairly consistent role, does okay against Orianna. I think he's actually one of the more commonly picked champions against Orianna, but Orianna's still going to be able to farm in that lane. It's not something you can shove right. It's not something I'd expect from any champion, really, as Orianna is one of the most consistent farmers in the game. So I guess it's just a playstyle choice. They're looking to really just try and get as many kills on Orianna as possible, but we've seen already Torodos has been very consistent even when under pressure.
Yeah, and they can absolutely snowball this game because Elise and the mid lane of Ahri is just a kill combo. There's very little Torodos can do if they get the perfect gank. Cocoon lands and he is essentially dead at level 6, and it's very easy to counter gank the Vi with Elise. Again, we would say that KO would be better here, but if Exeter feels more comfortable in Ahri, that would work out way better than, like the perfect pick in a certain situation.
And the perfect pick for us right now is to head to a small commercial break because we are in the loading screen, well, in the delay period, sorry. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes. We're live with game number 3 here for the Scan Invitational, powered by Creative Sound Blaster, Netgear, and Be Quiet. Game number 3 between Eternity and Superteam EU Kappa, and Yarrow nearly getting caught out there in his own mid-bush.
Yeah, not what you want for the first couple of minutes of this game stress. That would definitely not be at all what they want. But Super Team EU Kappa are looking very strong. I always called them something else because we've just been having a different conversation. Ginsu, find themselves caught by Moaf. We'll be jumping into that blast shield, and not too much happening in this early game.
Nearly struggling with the Kappa, but you can never have too much Kappa, as we've seen plenty of it in chat. But nevertheless, Eternity look really like they want to get any kind of invade here. They're going very aggressive, heavily shoving Super Team out from their top jungle. So they do establish wards. How will they use this?
Yeah, it will give them a little bit of early vision, and that's probably all they can hope for. And yeah, indeed, the wards have gone down. So that's basically all they want to do. And early buff invades, unless they're very late, are also then very risky because they are so late, and then are very easily countered because the enemy jungler will just go for your buff, and there is very little you can do about it without going for a lane swap, and you don't lane swap anymore because of the changes to towers.
Yeah, that's simply put, that is exactly why that yeah, can't really put that any more eloquently myself, mainly because I'm stumbling over my words already.
Indeed. So Ginsu gonna clear out his red buffs.
Hello. Mike, good EA.
Gank then will retreat back to his jungle. Sorry, I had something ping up on my screen.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if we lost sound there for a second. We did indeed. I'll deal with that later. But either way, Mozilla whacking away up to Mikey R in the top lane, and in the bottom lane, Eternity are not in good shape, taking a lot of damage, but pinging up to level 2 will be much better with the extra health regen.
Yeah, sorry about the little tech issues there, but just one of those things. However, we are back. I believe everything should be good once again. Very aggressive out in that bottom lane from the Super Team EU Kappa bot lane pairing. They've got 16 CS to 5 of Lucian from that early aggression. I wonder whether they can hold that kind of lead as this game goes on.
Yeah, and we'll see if they can achieve that goal. So right now it's 1-0, and that first kill going to Vi means that she can be a little more aggressive, because generally Ginsu will completely out-trade him and maybe get the kill into the bottom lane. Nikos will not be able to respond, but in the top lane, Mozilla will not, in fact, drop. So aggression on both sides of the map and no kills.
Yeah, aggression for no kills, but again, these two teams are just fighting tooth and nail against each other, just trying to get whatever advantage they can. Mozilla's going back in, sorry, Mouth is going back in on Mozilla in that top lane, and they're going to trade back and forth. And in the bot lane again, there's a Flame Chompers have landed, and that's the first kill for the team of Super Team EU.
Yeah, Stratos falling, and Nikos will just go ahead and recall. In fact, he's going to stick around for the CS. He probably doesn't have anything to fear. I say that, and now he'll die because of Curse of the Commentator. But he's going to move away from this turret. In fact, no, he walks back into it, and will re-engage onto Chewed Up. The aggro still being taken by Yarrow. Moves out. Ooh, very close. Chewed Up ticking down with the Ignite. Nikos will not fall. Very tight.
Has to be careful that he didn't take too much damage from that Siege minion there, but it looks like Super Team EU, even while being very low, they know where the positions of Eternity are, so they're going to be able to put more damage down onto this turret and even push that minion wave in, trying to really just stop Strategist from getting as much experience as possible.
Yeah, so right now it brings the score to 1-1, and a large CS advantage to that. Jinx results in the Vampiric Scepter and the double Doran to play, so really looking to commit himself to this laning phase. Gyarados has been caught in the middle lane, doesn't land a cocoon just yet, and Excella just following through. Mowoff comes in for the counter gank, and Gintu just disengages completely.
Yeah, and that the charm gave them the amount of time to make that decision, allowed them to see Mouth coming into lane, so knew they weren't going to go aggressive into that one. And Super Team EU just look a little bit more comfortable in this beginning of the game. Even though the gold is even, it just feels like they're the ones controlling the pace a little bit better of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see what happens as we transition towards the middle game. And now I guess time is to look at who actually does transition better. And these are very similar teams in kind of how they operate. There's a lot of diving, especially because of the Leona pickup, the Vi pickup, so there's more engage in that sense. But the disengage from Annie, she's always so good, not only in laning phase, but because of the AoE stun on demand. There's absurd flash into Vault Breaker in the mid lane though. Excella is dropping so incredibly low, needs one more auto attack. Oh, the clutch charm! They flash forward, Turtles may well die, resulting in the double kill for the Excella in the mid lane.
Wow, and none of the champions in that engagement were level 6 at the time, and Mozilla might find himself in trouble up in the top lane, gets taken down by Mikey, so that's a little bit back in favor of Eternity, but Dragon now under the control of Super Team, and with none of the champions in that mid lane engagement being level 6, they had no escape available and no way of locking Ari down before she got the charm off and locked both of them under the turret, landing crazy amounts of damage. Stun lands outside Dragon. This could be another fight.
Yeah, they're fighting tooth and nail over this one, 2 versus 3, but maybe they've kept around for a little too long. Nikos is still tanking like a boss. Mowoff is coming in from the top side, should eventually die to Chewed Up, and the rest of the team is looking to reconverge onto Mowoff. Auto attacks come down, but he's actually very tanky.
That was a really scrappy fight as well from Super Team. They actually missed the smite, at least didn't quite get the damage, didn't quite finish off the Baron, so had to rely on abilities alone to finish that one off. So could it easily have been stolen by Eternity if they had that snap-second decision-making. And from there, the zap didn't quite land either for Super Team, but they still managed to pick up the Dragon and a kill there.
Yeah, so Ari actually opting towards Grail build, or maybe actually just sitting on the Chalice, and I actually didn't see Fiend's Unholy Grail first on Ari too often. It's generally, you look towards the Orianas, the Gragas's, but sometimes you'll see a more damage-orientated build from Ari players.
Yeah, it's one of those discussions again that it's the different schools of thoughts. Fiend's Unholy Grail versus Deathfire. Grasp stun actually lands in the bottom lane.
Strategas has been again locked down by the stun into the snare. Get Excited comes out. Nikos has been also tagged by the zap as they just whittle him down as he retreats to his turret. Vi coming back out. And Leona being very aggressive. He might go for this one. Mooff is very mobile. Does not yet have the mobility boots. And will have to back off.
Yeah, Chewed Up still fairly healthy in this lane, and without Strategist in the lane available, I don't know whether they've quite got the damage here if Yarrow were to charge up that stun. Tibbers is available, but the stun is not, so Chewed Up has to be a little bit careful as they play around here, because Yarrow's not quite got the mana to charge that stun up as quickly as he would like to.
Yep, and Ginsu found himself turtless in the jungle. He's very low on mana. The Spiderling's also doing work. Repel comes up. Where will he fall? Back where he landed. And back where he came up. And Exler comes around the side. Looks like they are trying to contest over this blue buff. Mooff just nicely jukes out of the Orb of Deception. And they should be running away. So at least they have the ward over it.
Yeah, Mikey was coming across, so Ginsu couldn't really fully engage onto Torodos because he probably would have had to have taken a tower shot for it. So I think smart play there to repel up and fall backwards rather than forwards. The smite goes down, I believe Ginsu got that, but maybe it looks like Eternity are trying to get away from this engage.
Yeah, Spirit Rush has been used, picks up one. Mozilla will be the person picking that one up. Mooff also drops, and Exler picks up one for his ultimate.
It feels like a switch got flipped in between Game 1 and 2 for Superteam EU when they really found their stride, because they're so comfortable in this series now, and it's not the same team that we saw in Game number 1 that were very close with Eternity. They're playing with a lot more confidence and rotating around the map as if it's their own straight from the off.
Yeah, and Mozilla and Mikey are still trading off against the top lane, and right now this is actually going down to the wire because the minions are also paying into this. The Dragon Descent will clear out those minions. Mikey are so close to claiming this kill. Burnout popped. He doesn't choose to go underneath the turret. A cleaver at the right moment could have resulted in a kill in return.
Yarrow is waiting in that bottom lane. Bush gets stunned in place. No stacking out from Eternity.
And I feel this is just deja vu as again Strategist dies to that combination, and it's another kill, literally to no jungler intervention, and again Superteam EU Kappa reclaim another kill.
You expect lanes to go even without the presence of a jungler at this level. You shouldn't be dying in that situation. And in the mid lane, here's the jungler presence out of Ginsu. They're looking for the kill onto Torrent. A shockwave forced out. Can they manage to convert this one? Ginsu forced to flash out again. It flashes over the wall to follow. Torodos will fall from that one. You expect there to be no jungler presence, but in the bottom, Mouth has arrived.
Yeah, just talking about jungler presence is all over the borders. We're trying to talk about it. So, but yeah, indeed, you expect not for those lanes to die in a 2 versus 2 or 1-on-1. Generally, bot lane you can have more things happening because you have the slightly more random factor of an extra person, but you typically should not be dying 1-on-1 unless you get a 1-for-1 or a 2-for-2 trade.
And the thing in that bottom lane engagement was Eternity didn't even stack for the Tibbers. They just Superteam EU picked one and just removed from the map, which is, you know, great calling, great targeting out of Superteam EU. And we mentioned earlier, Chewed Up and Yarrow have played before together, and I believe have been playing a few games recently as well in an Intel Cup. So it's not too surprising that they're finding their groove together once again, and they're really doing a number here on the bottom lane for Eternity. They have a massive lead.
Yeah, and that's just all over the board as well, meaning that all these lanes are doing well. Shyvana is, yes, maybe slightly ahead of Mundo, but slightly ahead is really not going to cut it when the rest of the team is honestly crumbling. We're going to look for the countergag from Moa, but they expect the bottom lane to be aggressive, but it's more because Lucien is just stepping out of line for an instant.
They just have to be a bit careful that they don't drift forward like that, especially when Ginsu is heading down into this bottom lane. They're just T-warding as much as possible, but Ginsu is actually standing right on top of a ward from Eternity. So all Eternity have to do here is play this one careful. They do have to be wary, though, that the stun is charged up for Yarrow.
Yeah, the alternative is to try and bait out the tower dive, but with the tower being this low, another wave and another wave of them just batting down the turret could result in them just diving the turret and winning anyway. So culling, very slow culling, will be killing 2 minions, and that'll be the tower falling.
Wow, Exile manages to get the Spirit Rush away and drag Vi into the turret, so nice play there. He uses the last charge to try and land more damage, but that was a really nice play to prevent all of that gank potential coming from Eternity.
Yeah, it's kind of the Maokai thing back in Season 2, where it's just like, it could be amazing, it could result you in the fountain. But Tarados is not really in good shape. Excellent, doing huge amounts of damage, which is what you expect in that 1-for-1. Will the Jinx ult be on target? Yes, it will, but not quite enough damage. Can they do enough to just finish off Tarados? The answer is a resounding no, but again, on target.
They do get a turret, though, in exchange, and I think they'll be a little more happy with a turret rather than one extra kill, but really, Shoot-Up's ultimates have just been pretty spectacular on Jinx so far.
Mozilla, Dragon's Descent comes down. One more auto attack. In fact, the Flame Breath will pick up that kill. And
Apologies.
Ginsu find themselves strategized, and they will not be able to follow up. And Excel has just wandered around all the way from the side. Auto attacks come out from Mr. Fishboat, and the Tibbers Falls will pick up that kill. And now to see if they can catch them in rotation, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
Got caught drinking water. My thirst was interrupted. However, that was another good pickup on the side of Superteam EU. And again, they're playing with this confidence that we kind of wouldn't expect from a team that have had a replacement. But although, as we mentioned, they were former random XTD, so have played a lot of games together in Ranked 5. So it's not surprising that the four of them are meshing quite well, as you'd expect.
Yeah, you almost caught me drinking water earlier in the cast, and I'm glad you were the first one. But yeah, it's something that as a caster you can't really handle, because you can't tell if the other person is drinking water or not. They're not right next to you, but yeah. I'm just hoping that you're not drinking water again there, Stress.
No, I wasn't. I'm actually trying to coordinate with Ocelot's team to make sure that we can secure streaming for our final best of 3 of the day. So apologies if I'm a little slow to respond now and again. But in game number 3 here between Eternity and Superteam EU Kappa, and this is our first game 3 of the day.
Yeah, indeed. We did have some troubles before with some of the teams, but Moab jumps forwards, gets the combo out. Mozilla is not really long for this world, and will drop for that superb gank with the Assault and Battery used.
And now Superteam have taken away the red buff in the... No, they're clearing it out, actually. Saw them finishing the end of that one, but neither member is wearing that red buff. However, they're closing in on Eternity.
Yeah, Nikos has been caught out. Spirit Rush has been used. Strategist will eventually be falling to Chewed Up, at least drawing him away, but in fact his ally will also drop in the process. So 2-0 trade, and Superteam EU Kappa draw themselves even further ahead.
Now Eternity will look to consolidate anything that they can here. They're quite well. They're 5,000 gold behind already, nearly 6,000 actually. But they've got to be careful they don't get picked off.
Yeah, aggression in the mid lane and indeed the bottom lane with the Super Mega Death Rocket picking up that one. Tarados did not quite die, but Tibbers is grinding him down, and the Orb of Deception almost taking him out on the second pass.
Now Superteam are having to fall back a little bit in this middle lane as Yarrow is fairly low. The Kappas I can see are flying through chat here, but we wonder how Superteam EU can accelerate this game through. 2 towers in their favor. They need to look for that third, and that exactly is what Mozilla is doing in that top lane.
Yeah, hopefully one day my my dream of like Frankazi and Kappa going head to head in the game will be happening. Super Team NA Frankazi would be great. Now,
Ginsu and Chewed Up will clear that ward out down in the bottom lane, but without Dragon being available yet, they really don't have the objectives focused quite yet. I would imagine, need to start rotating people around to that top lane to try and get that final tower down, and then prepare for a Dragon, as it will be spawning in 2 minutes. So, would like to see a bit more rotation play out of Superteam EU, but it's one of the more difficult things about playing as a team, is getting your rotations right.
Yeah, but now 13-5 surprisingly is is 6k in the head, which is significant, but it's not game-ending. And because so few objectives have been taken, there's a lot of time to come back into this game, because they're going to, at some point, try to take down objectives, and they have a very good team-fighting team to stop that from happening. Spirit Rush will be caught during its animation. Tarados caught in both of the Orbital Deception passes. Nikos comes in towards the middle lane. An ultimate across will not quite land on Tarados, but Vi picking up the kill in the meanwhile. Yarrow backing off. Solar Flare comes down, doesn't get the stun portion. Teleport now comes out from Mozilla, who arrives at this team fight, does not quite connect the cleaver just yet. Mooff juking back and forth, jukes the cleaver, and does get hit by the Incinerate, but not the stun. Tudor coming forward, Zap comes out, gets excited, but no one to jump onto.
And this could result in an inhibitor turret. This is a siege minion wave, and they have Tibbers on full health, so they will send all of them in to look for this turret. But I believe they got distracted slightly by the fact Mikey R was trying to rotate around behind them. However, that will be a turret for Superteam EU. Will they be able to get the inhibitor? My thoughts are no.
Yeah, and if they hadn't hesitated, because most likely Ginsu was screaming on TeamSpeak, "Help, Mikey R is after me," then he probably would have been able to pick that up as well. But it's because of that great play and that great timing just to push away the jungler.
Now, Dragon is going to be up in 10 seconds. Will they be able to take advantage of that? It looks like they might not actually realize the timer, because they are recalling. I know Ginsu is fairly low here, but it just doesn't look like either team is all that prepared to contest that Dragon. It has now spawned and will remain for a little while longer.
Indeed. So right now, we've got the Deathfire Grasp being picked up by Ari, and we were talking before about sometimes you see the Fiend's Unholy Grail first, sometimes you'll see the Deathfire Grasp first, but is Fiend's Unholy Grail into Deathfire Grasp something that's all that common?
I mean, not that common at all to go one into the other. Normally you'll see one followed up by, for instance, a Zhonya's, but up in the top lane, Mozilla is in trouble. Yeah,
and this is something that is very common, because Mozilla will most likely be falling again with the Vault Breaker landing. They should be able to secure this kill. The ultimate has worn off, and one good Vault Breaker will pick up that kill.
However, Mooff being up in that top lane, of course, allows that Dragon to be taken down by Superteam EU uncontested. The culling has been forced out in this bottom lane to chunk through the minion wave, but that tower is so low health that I think Superteam may just look to push that one down on their own.
Yeah, this is probably the only thing they have to be concerned about, and that's Mikey R, because he 3-0-1, having a blinder of a game, and Solar Flare lands onto Ginsu, does not get the stun portion, will be able to repel up and move on to Nikos before he gets the kill and return. Chewed Up turns around for a split second, Blade of the Rune Queen comes out to try and lock him down, and finally the shockwave has dropped onto one player. Tibbers comes in, 4 versus 5, shutdown comes down, 1-for-1 trade. Mooff gets tagged by Zap. Here's the next kill. Tarados' command protect is not going to be enough to keep him alive, and the 3-man push will continue.
And again, they have Tibbers on full health, so they can send him in to tank down the tower. He did take a couple of hits there from Tarados, so didn't survive all that long, but it should be long enough for Superteam to take down another inhibitor turret, although they're getting distracted by Tarados. I'm not sure that that's the right choice to make there. I would have probably opted for the turret rather than the kill.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't, because the tower didn't die and he also died in return. So 17-9, they are still ahead, 10k ahead in fact, and 4 objectives in forms of those turrets and indeed those dragons. But with the bottom tower not falling, it hasn't exposed the inhibitor. Plus inhibitors now, inhibitor towers I should say, actually regenerate HP. So unless they make another play at some point in the next kind of minute or so, it will start to get to a point where they can't force a fight and also kill the turret instantly.
I kind of feel like, had that turret gone down, it would have been very difficult for Eternity to have really contested in this game. Even though they had both inhibitors still available, having open inhibitors means you have to be incredibly careful where you take fights, because Chewed Up, being 7-1, can just get in with 1 or 2 members of his team and take that inhibitor down straight away. So, again, I really would have preferred to have seen them take down that inhibitor turret.
Yeah, we'll see if they can make another play on it, because it's not going to get to the stage where it's going to be a factor in a team fight, because sometimes you can just nuke it down and then go for a fight underneath it anyway. But at 600 HP, it is still significant without minions. And we'll see Mozilla 1-4-2 and has just picked up his second big tank item, but has been the only kind of weak point on the roster of Super Team EU Kappa. But it's not meant that like Shyvana has scaled out of control, so it's not something they have to be worried about.
And now, as expected, the 1-4 split here for Super Team EU. They will look to push down in that bottom lane, but they're actually going to spread out as they think they found Torredos.
Yeah, and the charm will come through, does not quite connect, got the last charge and doesn't quite connect his Orb of Deception, but with the rest of the team moving around the side, minion wave cleared up by Strategas, and not sure if they can quite see just one in. They're actually going to commit Shyvana down here as well, which will mean that Mundo will eventually become a factor.
Yeah, that is the first turret for Mundo, but how will Super Team EU respond here? They've got home guards out from Eternity already on 2 champions, so they have to be careful that they don't overextend in this bottom lane.
The funny thing is, despite Mundo not doing well, the only one who can deal with him is the only person who is doing well on the team of Eternity. So they can't actually utilize Shyvana being so fed right now in the bottom lane without meaning that Mundo will just take all the turrets he wants. And in fact, they have gone for this engagement. Whoa, jumps up. The Solar Flare comes down, and already Elise has jumped so far into the back line. Ultimate comes out, the Super Mega Death Rocket, but they're all slowly being chunked down. They are so low, all about 20% HP on each member of that team. And that Mozilla picks up 1, and they do have a strong enough lineup to potentially take this turret. Tibbers is alive, and the next minion wave comes out. Ginsu's just going to try and protect that first minion. Flash forward by Yarrow. Cleaver comes across and picks up another 3-for-1 trade. Not sure if they can even take this tower though. Ginsu drops so low, and in fact, they keep her alive.
Yeah, without shoot up there, they can't really push in, and Ginsu forced to repel to try and avoid any tower aggro. And Maweth may have overextended there. There's another engagement in mid. His strategist will pick up the kill. They do pick up the kill onto Vi, and now can't get the turret.
And in fact, Elise just wandered into the turret and died regardless, even though Moab had tripped up on the timing of repel. So another 1-for-1 trade, and now Mozilla trying to back off and not get locked down by Nikas as he comes in from the side, and Solar Flare is still on cooldown.
This is what I'm talking about Super Team overstaying. They couldn't take that turret and they end up falling for it. And now Yarrow has really overstayed in that bottom lane, and he's going to get surrounded.
Yeah, that's one of Yarrow's bigger issues as a player, and it's usually due to warding, but this time just in the bottom lane, Torredos will eventually kill him. Any second now. There we go. Got him.
Delayed kill there. Or they just wanted to make sure Yarrow got enough wards out in that bottom lane as possible, but again, they're not able to take down that bottom inhibitor tower, and I'm wondering how much that's really going to frustrate Super Team EU, that the fact that they're not converting these team fights into the advantage that they need to. Torredos uses the shockwave, doesn't quite pick up Shoot Up, but Shoot Up may be about to feel the wrath of Maikiar and Maweth coming from the side.
Yeah, that 3000 Elo shockwave not connecting means that they're going to have an issue when it comes to the next team fight, and they may just have to wait for that now. So that will be the team of EU Kappa moving on to the Dragon and picking up another objective and see if they can rotate to something else. A ping comes down onto the Vision Ward at the Baron, I should say, if I can get my words out properly. And Baron is still an objective that has not really been contested yet.
Yeah, apologies again for any little blips in casting. It's just making sure that we can broadcast our last series of the day following this. However, there's the ultimate from Maikiar.
Indeed, they go for this engagement. Mozilla is still there, just grinding everyone down. Excellent comes in from the side, almost instantly deletes Strategas, and the Zenith Blade will not quite connect as we got the Shield of Daybreak knocking down Exler into a stun, not quite underneath the turret. One kill, and this very well could be the game as the bottom tower will finally fall. That has been the most valuable bottom tower of all time, but now the inhibitor should be dropping, and 3 versus 5 means that if they do lose 1 or 2 more members, the game will be over. Mowar, the Tankiest member, will be dropping. Shockwave lands only onto Mozilla, perfectly timed. Repel comes up from Ginsu. I'm not sure if they can go any further. Another 10 seconds left. Onto Shyvana. Strategas dies, and Get Excited means the second kill comes out. This might be the GG, and it has been called by Torredos.
Yeah, I wonder whether they are going to forfeit here, as the super minions are about to breach the base from the mid lane. They just need to shove those through, but they're tanking up turret shots, and I don't know whether that's the best idea when the minions aren't there.
Can't get away from that Leona, but you can definitely kill her. Mike Chiara is the only one here, and he has itemized inefficiently in terms of more damage over defensiveness, meaning he dies very quickly. The Nexus turret falls, the second Nexus turret falls, and we'll see how much Mowolf can do about it. 4 versus 1. Ginsu is just looking to kill the Nexus at this stage. In fact, Mowolf will die again in his base, and the Nexus will be falling.
And that means Super Team EU Kappa have taken this best of 3 series 2 games to 1. As I believe we're going to try and prepare to go quickly into our last best of 3 of the day, so stick